Hello everyone. Welcome to the InStyle Knitting Studio. Today we will knit this wonderful set for lovers. One women's mitten, one men's mitten, and one shared mitten for walking hand in hand. If you like this set, then let's get started. I will use half-wool Slonim yarn. The main color is grey, and I have these 3 skeins. Each skein consists of 4 thin threads, so I will be using 12 thin threads in the main grey color. We will also need a little blue and a little pink, as we will have men's and women's mittens. I will use circular needles, not straight ones. I have size 3.5 and 4.25. 3.5 for the cuff and 4.25 for the main piece. We will also need a measuring tape, scissors, a stitch marker, a needle to hide all the threads at the end of the knitting, and a notebook with a pen for calculations. Additionally, we will need these needles, a hook, and a sharp-tipped needle. The hook is for making a chain of air stitches. If you don't crochet, you can manage without it. Before starting to knit, we will take all the necessary measurements. This is the wrist circumference measured with the measuring tape. For me, that is 19 centimeters. Next, my thumb is about 5.5 centimeters, but I will knit for 6 centimeters. The length of the hand is from this part to the tips of the fingers. I have 17.5 centimeters. Then we knit a gauge swatch in stockinet, as our mittens will be knitted in stockinet. According to my measurements, I got 1.8 stitches per centimeter. I multiply this number by the wrist circumference, which is 19. This gives me 34.2 stitches. I rounded it to 34 stitches. This number of stitches should be approximately even, since at first, we will knit a 1 by 1 rib. If you are knitting a 2 by 2 rib, then the number of stitches should be divisible by 4. If you didn't understand how I made these calculations, please check out the video linked. I explain in more detail how to measure your knitting density, and how to calculate the number of stitches needed to cast on. I will knit 2 mittens simultaneously using the magic loop method. Because if I knit the mittens separately, they turn out to be different sizes. So I also advise you to knit both mittens on one pair of needles, right and left. To do this, I wound the threads into balls. So we need to have 2 different skeins of yarn. Not like that, since we will be knitting separately. That means I will knit 1 mitten from one skein. Not like that, but the second mitten from the second one. I took needle size 3.5, and now from one skein, I will take a thread and cast on 34 stitches. According to my calculations, if you knit the mittens separately, you add 1 stitch to your count to close the knitting into a circle. However, I will not add extra stitches, because here I will knit the first row directly, not closing into a circle. Each mitten, therefore, according to my calculation, had 34 stitches for 1 mitten. And now from one skein, I will cast on these 34 stitches using a universal method. I cast on 34 stitches and move them to the cord. I want to note that the needles should be quite long. The total length of the needle with the cord is 120 centimeters. Well, the needles should be around 100 centimeters, more or less, including the cable. To comfortably knit 2 mittens at the same time. So, we cast on stitches for 1 mitten, shifted them here. Now we take the second skein and cast on 34 stitches as well. For the second mitten, in the same way, universally. We have cast on, now we need to take one needle. We have now taken these stitches. We shift everything to the opposite end, that is, opposite this needle. We hold it in the left hand. Now we divide this number of stitches in half. We pull out the cord. Well, you don't have to do it in half. You can do it, well, somewhere in the middle. About here, we look and pull out the cord. Thus, we arrange it so that the braid is inside, so nothing is twisted here. Especially, we take the thread and start knitting. This will be our first mitten, and we will knit 11 rows of ribbing one by one. That is 1 knit, 1 purl. In round knitting, we always knit the knits through the front loop, and the purl, well, however you like. I will knit with purl classic. We do not connect the circle right away. Yes, we immediately start knitting the first row. Knit a knit stitch, pull it tight here and then a purl stitch. Knit 1 knit stitch, then 1 purl stitch. We have reached the end of this row. My last stitch here will be a knit stitch. Now this needle will be our working needle. We take it out and pull the left needle tight. We will now knit the second half of our first mitten. Next, we knit the same way, alternating knits and purls. These wraps will disappear later, and everything will tighten as it should. I had a knit stitch here. So, the last stitch means I knit the next one as a purl. Pull it tight here as much as possible. Then, we start knitting the second half of our stitches. My last stitch is a purl. I have reached the beginning of the row of my first mitten. Now we pull out the needle that was in the right hand. We pull the cord tight so the stitches don't slip, and move to our second mitten. Here are the stitches for the second mitten, and there is no thread from the ball here. But it turns out this is our first cast on stitch. We pull it to the end of the left needle. Now we will take the thread from the other ball and start. We will knit the second mitten as well. We divide the number of stitches in half and pull the cord here. And even my husband knitted the second mitten, just like the first one. But now we take the thread from the second ball. We also check to make sure nothing is twisted. The first rows are usually the most difficult, then it will be easier. Everything is good, we immediately knit the knit stitch. We pull further, we knit the first half of the purl stitch. We have finished the stitches of the second mitten. Now we pull out the right needle. It will be the working one. And we knit the second half of our stitches of the second mitten. The last one I had here was a purl. So I am knitting the knit stitch and then we alternate. The last purl stitch we have knitted our second mitten. Now we leave our second mitten. We take out this needle. it will be the working one, which was in the right hand. Let's tackle the first mitten. Here it is. We start knitting in the round again. Especially at this junction, we need to pull the threads well. That's it. We continue knitting the second row of our first mitten. That means here we knit according to the pattern. We have finished. Now we pull out the right needle. It will be working now. We pull the left one. That means we are already knitting the second half of the first mitten. I think you will cast on the stitches. You will understand where to pull as you go. So we knit the second half of our first mitten. We have finished the last stitch. This is how it turns out for us. This is our first mitten. Now we move on to the second mitten. We pull the left needle to the second. For the stitches of the second mitten, we pull out the right needle and will knit further. We have already started on the second mitten. That means we are knitting the first half of the second mitten. This is our second row, it turns out. We finished knitting. Now we pull the left needle. The second half of the second mitten, we pull the right side a little like this, and finish the second half of the second mitten, the last purl. Here we have finished, so we have the second row in both mittens. Now we pull the left needle to the first mitten. We will knit the third row, also ribbing one by one. So friends, by alternately pulling the needles, we will knit one mitten, and then the other, until we have 11 rows of ribbing on each of our mittens. After this we will meet and change the yarn color. So, well, we knitted 11 rows. This is how it turned out for me, about 4.5 centimeters in length. Next, we will change the yarn color. That is, one mitten will have a stripe in pink, and the other in blue. We just start knitting further, only now with the new color. So, we are changing the yarn. Here is my first mitten, for example. I will be knitting it for a woman. Yes, so now we introduce a new pink thread. Yes, we simply leave the grey one, not cutting anything, and just start knitting the new row with the pink yarn. And then we will secure these ends at the end of the knitting. We finish the first half of the stitches of the women's mitten. Finished. Now we have the second half of the women's mitten. Thus, we finish one row with the pink thread in the women's mitten, and knit one row similarly, but with the blue thread in the men's mitten. Well, we have knitted one row. Yes, now we start knitting the women's mitten again, and we need to knit the second row, it turns out. I will knit the first stitch of the second row, not in the stitch of the pink color, but in the stitch of the gray color. That is, the stitch below. I insert the needle and knit the face stitch. In my case, it is a face stitch. we remove everything from the left needle. We pull the threads. Next, we start knitting the second row. If everything is done carefully here, then the steps, as it were, are like a transition from one color to another. Yes, usually a step is formed. This step should not be present now. Or at least it should look much better than usual. We knit the second row, which means the first stitch of the second row is worked into the stitch below. We will also do the same in this mitten. This is our second row. That is, we always change the color in the second row to the new color. We insert below into the first stitch. I think you understand in general, this is how I change colors. Yes, and our second row has started. We will also knit the second row in blue, and proceed to the third row. We will knit pink and blue in the third row. There is no need to insert below there, we just knit in the round as usual. In the end, we should have 3 rows of pink and 3 rows of blue. After that, we will change the color to gray again. We have completed 3 rows with the pink yarn. Now we change the color to gray. We did not cut it, it is still there. 3 rows is a bit. I left it as a carry. If you are bothered by this carry, then at the beginning of each row, you need to cross these yarns in each row. So we pick up the gray yarn, leaving the pink. We pick up the gray and start knitting with the gray yarn now. And with the gray yarn, we will knit 4 rows. Also, we knit one by one in ribbing 4 rows with gray yarn on the women's mitten, and 4 rows with gray yarn on the men's mitten. We will also complete the second row, right here, when we are knitting with the gray yarn. The second row, the first stitch, let's not forget. We insert the needle into the stitch below. This is only in the second row of the new color. That's it. So the following rows we just knit, well, as usual, in the round. And do not forget that if you don't like this carry, which will be on the inside, especially since 4 rows will be in gray yarn here. Then at the beginning of each row, these 2 yarns, 2 colors, need to be crossed. That's it. We knit with gray yarn on both the women's and men's mitten for 4 rows. After that, we change the color again to the corresponding one, to light blue, to pink. And then, after 4 rows with gray yarn, we knit 2 rows with pink and blue yarn. After that, after 2 rows with pink yarn, we knit 4 more rows with gray. That's it, friends, so 4 with gray, 2 with pink, and 4 with gray, here, 4 with gray. 2 with blue, and 4 with gray. Well, we have knitted. And now we will transition from the middle to the main fabric. We will knit the entire mitten in stockinet stitch. So now we will start knitting in stockinet stitch. If we are knitting in the round, then we will knit all the stitches in the front loop. This means my ribbing height turned out to be about 9 centimeters. And now we will transition to stockinet stitch. And we will also change the size of the needles. That is, we will use larger ones. In my case, this is a size 425, and we begin to knit. The first mitten is for women. So we just start knitting all the stitches in the front. This means the front stitch is knitted in the front loop. And the purl stitch in the first row I knit in the front loop. This is only in the first row. After that, all stitches in the front loop. Here is the front in the front, the purl in the front loop. Thus, We will knit the first row, and then we will knit 3 more rows in regular stockinette stitch in the front loop. We will meet in the second part and make increases for the thumb.